And here we are on PIA26074 for the symbolism buffs or whatnot. And right away, you can notice this dust devil or a quote through movement source or whatnot. And it does move in this direction and on this particular level. A dust devil, whether the source is underground or more than likely it's supposed to be caused by winds or a hurricane like type of movement. There are also some interesting structures. You can notice the symmetry on this side of the slope. And yeah, in that direction there. And also these structures here are interesting, which we'll have a more focused look at. And also these objects in the foreground and this range over here too. And some more objects. But this is a somewhat interesting type of dust devil, so we'll come up. These are the areas that we'll explore somewhat further. That would be these areas here, this path of this dust devil. And also these objects here. This is a somewhat round structure, sort of globe of some sort. Also some symmetrical objects here that are interesting with their particular designs, and this object here as well. And this range on the side. There seems to be some structures on this side of the slope as well. And here as well. Definitely worth exploring a bit further. The first structure we'll focus on. And you can see it does have some very interesting design to it. It does have some rounded parts, and it does kind of stand out compared to the other objects in the area. This is an interesting object here as well. Don't want to get too pixelated. However, you can notice this groove on the side. This appear to be oval circular structures here. Very interesting to speculate on. This object here seems to be interesting as well. Symmetrical, creative, whatnot. And this is another structure which we just mentioned at the start. It's somewhat on the left side of this particular panorama. You can notice this circular globular structure or globular structure, however you'd like to pronounce that. It does appear to have some type of shadow here. Now, is that made by nature or is it made by some other type of technology? And back to the structure we were just on, which is structure quote 1. We're using the Zeek tint, which would bring out some more detail somewhat. And you can notice that the shadow does appear to be there. There also seems to be some intricate design to it. Oval pointed shapes at the top here, and linear pattern here on the left side of it. There does appear to be some type of groove here. And that object we mentioned a while ago here is prominent as well. And you can notice the linear pattern does seem to be well designed. There's also an interesting groove here with a shadow to it. Is that some type of equipment? Very interesting design pattern here, you must admit. Hint. We get somewhat more detail. You can notice the shadows more and linear patterns and whatnot. Is that made naturally? Or is it designed? Interesting contours on this side too. Is it some type of equipment? Is it connected to something underground? Here, which will zoom in on a bit further, you can notice these intricate patterns here. That is somewhat more noticeable compared to some other objects, but it's probably just the vantage point of the rover or whatnot. Notice this object on the side here. Very interesting shadows and linear patterns. This is a very rounded circular object here. Not to mention all of these objects in the background. What exactly are they? This seems to have some type of shadowy opening on the side. Is this a certain type of beam or whatnot? And platform on the top. And adding some contrast brightness to this particular panorama, we get this. You can see the contours a bit more somewhat. Very interesting designs and patterns. And just look at this design here. Very uniform, very symmetrical, very creative. And this does appear to have another type of beam in the center. Is this equipment? Is it some type of monitoring equipment or devices or whatnot? Notice the symmetry here. These are just a few, of course. Many, many more to explore on. Gadget, which would be the burn and brightness contrast instrument combination, we get this type of scenario. And this would bring out some of the shadows or whatnot. And there is our dust devil, or quote, through fair movement process or whatnot. And notice on the side here, this is a linear landform. And also these structures are starting to seem more symmetrical. Is this some type of route or roadway or path or whatnot? And notice there are objects here, 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 and this mountain range on the side, which does seem to have some structures and symmetry as well. It would be interesting if this source is in fact underground. And what is it made of? Is it some type of dirt devil with material in there that's, quote, dirt or debris? Is it steam? Is it made of a liquid, maybe H2O? Interesting to speculate on. Out of this panorama of PIA26074, you get this type of area to focus on. And just to get some more detail, we're going to experiment with the gadgets, the brightness gadgets. You can see there are some contours here. Perhaps some structures. Even at the very top, just notice how designed the top seems to be. And as was noted at the other side as well, where that, quote, dust devil was located. Adding some filters. Perhaps you can make out some additional symmetrical contours or whatnot. Tint. You can notice that there are somewhat more detailed landforms to discover. Here would be the, quote, dust devil. Just notice the oval base structure and the spout at the top. Is this in fact some type of spout from underground or whatnot along this contour here? Or is it just a regular type of, quote, dust devil with hurricane-like characteristics or wind characteristics? And notice the intricate designs in here. Are they structures? Or they're some type of settlement? Urbanization. Notice this linear pattern here. Structures in this area as well. Urbanization. Notice this linear pattern here. Structures in this area as well. That Mars does continue to fascinate. And this panorama, PIA 26074, is not an exception. And of course, with that, quote, dust devil or whatever you'd like to call it, it does have a particular route. It does have some movement that should be speculated upon. And is it in fact a source from underground? Is it just a regular type of hurricane, quote, or wind type of movement? And also the interesting structures are to be noted. And please continue with your exploration. And until next time, thank you yet again on behalf of Effective Evolution. Thank you for your time.